Hi everyone, it's James here. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel and another installment of Revisiting, where I look back on one particular album that seems to have some kind of significance, or maybe it's just a record that I really like. Bit of a different one. For this particular installment, we're going to look at quite an interesting record. This is Laurie Anderson and Mr. Heartbreak. So this came out February the 14th, 1984. It was her second album, and I don't remember how I came across this. It was a few years ago now. I don't remember if I heard somebody talking about it, or whether I'd seen it on a video, or whether I'd read about it, or it might even have been a blind buy from a charity shop. I really can't remember, but I showed it on a video, so it must have been in the last maybe 7 or 8 years, and it's a very strange record, and it's one that I really enjoyed. And although I can't pretend that I understood it exactly, and I'm not entirely sure if I still do, if I do still, the thing that makes this record hold a bit of a special place in my heart is that I bought a copy of it for my dad for his birthday, and this would have been probably about 3 years ago. And my dad, who passed away last year, he was very particular about what popular music he would listen to. One day I will make a video about that. I have talked about it off and on many times over the years, but he was mainly a fan of classical music. He was very knowledgeable about it, and he would tolerate some popular music, but by and large, it wasn't really his thing. And I was always trying to get him interested in things. I was always trying to buy him things that I thought he might like, and most of the time it wasn't that successful. A few things over the years he enjoyed. You know, he loved Paul Simon, he loved Graceland, and there's a few things I got him into. And there was one birthday coming up, and I was just really stumped for a gift for him. I was scratching my head, couldn't think of what to get, and I had recently picked this record up, and I thought to myself, why don't I just go out on a limb and buy him Mr. Heartbreak by Laurie Anderson? And there was a sort of method in my madness to it, in that he was always a little bit partial to female singers. In fact, one really strange memory I have from when I was really young is that he went absolutely mad for the song Love Don't Live Here Anymore by Rose Royce. He bought that single when it came out, back whenever it was, 1978, and it was completely off the wall. I completely, just a total curveball. It threw everybody in the family. Nobody could quite understand it. But he could be quite partial to a female voice as long as the setting was interesting. He liked certain Kate Bush songs, and I just thought, well, this is something that might tickle his fancy in a way. It'll be something, completely beyond his sphere of knowledge. He won't really understand what it is any more than I did, but you never know, he might just enjoy it. So I bought it for him, gave it to him. I think I posted it to him. And then in the interim, I went back to listening to the record again, thinking, oh my God, he's going to hate it. He's going to absolutely hate it, because it was more abrasive than I had remembered it being. There are some quite abrasive songs on it, and we'll get to that in a minute. And he didn't really like abrasive music. But then he called me up a couple of days after his birthday, and he just said, I totally love that CD you got me. He wasn't 100% sold on every aspect of it, but I just think he really appreciated it. He appreciated the inventiveness of it, the way it was so different, the way it was not a standard pop rock record. He really wasn't a fan of rock music. He didn't like rock drums or anything like that, really. And this record does not have that on it. And, it's more of a performance piece, really, and all the electronic sounds and the ambient soundscapes. I think he just found it very interesting. And he genuinely did like it. And he listened to it, I think, quite a lot in the last few years of his life. So, it's amazing, these records, they come into your life and they end up just meaning so much to you. And I listened to this again last night. I hadn't heard it for quite a long time, and I did feel like I was sort of bonding with my dad a little bit, thinking, yeah, that was just a kind of once in a lifetime kind of fluke. Yeah, I got that right. It was just, it was priceless. So what is this record like? Well, just a little bit of background. Laurie Anderson is an American avant-garde artist and musician. She's a sculptress, she's a violin player. I mean, you know, you can look her up if you want. I mean, an astonishing career. She just, you know, she was sort of a bit like Yoko Ono, I suppose, just always on the cutting edge, just a million different things going on in her life and her career all the time. Art installations and musicals and strange collaborations and albums and events. She once did a concert where I think she was playing the violin and she was wearing a pair of ice skates that were all covered in snow and ice. And she played the violin continuously until the ice had melted. You know, it's that kind of performance art thing. I'm not entirely sure how she got into what you might call popular music. This was her second album. Her first album was Big Science, which of course had that absolutely monster hit single, Oh Superman, which had a very inventive video. And that kind of made her a bit of a star overnight, really. And for the second album, she teamed up with a number of interesting people. Bill Laswell, the American bass player, who's just made countless albums, you know. Again, he's got a bit of a background in the avant-garde and ambient music, free jazz, that kind of thing. Also on here, Peter Gabriel as well, who was, you know, always a bit of a pioneer in his way. In the early 80s, you know, he was a pop star with a bit of an avant-garde side to him, definitely a progressive, artistic side to him. There's one song on this album, actually, Excellent Birds, I think it is, which crops up in a different form on his... I think it was an extra track on the CD version of So. And who else has she got on here? She's got Adrian Belew, who'd been in King Crimson, of course. He plays on a couple of tracks on this. William S. Burroughs, the great avant-garde poet, does some reading of some very strange lyrics on the closing track, Sharky's Night, and a variety of other interesting people. Nile Rodgers crops up on a track, and it's very difficult to describe this music, and you need to listen to it, really. But essentially, you know, it's avant-garde pop music. It's quite ambient, it's quite dreamy, it's quite slow, meditative. The songs, if they are songs, they're more like sound collages with Laurie into intoning, although she does break out into melody sometimes, but she's sort of talking through quite a lot of it, and occasionally she has this vocoder effect fluttering around the edges of her voice, this very kind of subtle use of the vocoder, where just, you know, just odd words here and there will suddenly sound robotic. Lots of ethnic sounds, found sounds, some sort of exotic instrumentation. There are some instruments on here that I've never even heard of. You know, I was looking at the lyric sheet and just sort of, you know, going through it. You've got somebody here, Daniel Ponce, playing Icon Colo, Shaker, maybe African instruments. I'm not entirely sure. People playing homemade instruments as well. Electronic drums. Laurie herself frequently plays this instrument, the synclavier, which, you know, has been in quite a lot of pop music, but she does something quite strange with it. You know, again, it's quite ambient, it's quite floaty sounding. I'm not going to do justice to what this album sounds like. I suppose the Bill Laswell production is a key to it, the way that the sounds are melded together. It's very like an oral sculpture, really. You know, the songs are not pieced together like a live band would do it. It's not necessarily people playing off each other. It's more sculpted in the studio. I suppose, you know, I'm not entirely sure actually if she used a Fairlight synthesizer, but there's definitely parts of the record that sound like samples. I mean, this was 1984, so we're talking quite early in the 80s. Mixed from analog to 2-track digital, so some definite sort of analogy kind of sounds coming in. It's the kind of record which nowadays could be made quite simply just with a laptop, and, you know, you just plug some samples into it and off you go. But this record is more interesting than that, because most of the sounds on it, I think, are actually made by real instruments, either real instruments or, you know, instruments that have been improvised or made up. And the songs are just very strange. You know, her lyrics are very free form. They mix sort of commonplace, everyday kind of imagery, just a kind of sense of the routine of everyday life, mixed in with these very strange, almost visionary kind of moments of epiphany and just strange poetic, visionary kind of things. You know, if you look at the lyrics to Excellent Birds, which actually is a co-write with Peter Gabriel, flying birds, excellent birds, watch them fly, there they go. I close my eyes, I can see it now. I see pictures of people rising up. I see pictures of people falling down. I see pictures of people, they're standing on their heads. They're ready. It sounds to me maybe like she's using the William Burroughs technique of chopping up poetry. You know, his presence on the last track, presumably, you know, is a sort of indicator of that, really, that's her, maybe, you know, that was her way of working. You know, later on, of course, she married Lou Reed, and that's a relationship I don't know anything about. I keep meaning to read a good biography of Lou Reed and find out. I mean, you can sort of imagine it being a match made in heaven, really, although in a way, quite different, because Lou Reed, you know, he was from a more kind of rock and roll kind of background, and he's, you know, he liked things in a way more basic. It's just really interesting to sort of speculate what their creative life was like together. I don't know if he actually appeared on any of her records or vice versa. Sharky's Way, the opening track, it's just got some lovely moments in it. Very pictorial, actually, very painterly. Sun's coming up like a big bald head poking up over the grocery store. It's Sharky's Day. It's Sharky's Day today. The song is a kind of fractured narrative. You can't quite kind of grasp what it is that she's talking about or singing about. It's very impressionistic, very ambient. I'm conscious I'm just using the same words now over and over again because, you know, the album is genuinely difficult to describe. It's probably not for everybody. It's not the kind of music I sort of listen to a huge amount, although I'm very interested actually in hearing more of it. She's got quite a big discography. I'm just looking here now. Quite a few albums. Actually, not that many. A sort of handful of albums. This one was her second. Got to number 60 in the charts in the US. Got to number 93 in the UK. So, you know, not big chart positions at all for her albums. Although, like I said, she had that big hit single. A very interesting artist. I would really like to find out more about her, really, and try and track down some of her other recordings. But in the meantime, I thought it would be just quite nice to look at that one. So if you haven't heard this record, Mr. Heartbreak, I recommend you check it out, and I'd be interested to know actually what people think of it. If you haven't heard it, you know, give it a listen and then come back and leave a comment. If you have heard it and you do like Laurie's work, I would also love to hear about that. And if you know of any other, you know, whichever other records I should check out. I'm still looking for a copy of Big Science. Hasn't fallen into my grasp yet, but no doubt it will one day. Yeah, I thought, why not? Let's look at that album because, as I said, you know, I've got this personal connection to it now through the story of my dad. So that's just one of those kind of wonderful, happy accidents, really, that I'm very grateful for. And it's just a record that I'm really pleased to know and to have in my life. And it was great to hear it again last night. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope everybody's doing okay. And thanks for watching. I'll be back soon. Take care. Bye for now.